Sure.
We are live on Facebook. Oh my God. All right.
Okay. All right. So this is I'm trying to redeem myself, folks, for my screw up in one of the previous presentations, and Greg is going to be fully, because this is going to be a short one, so Greg will be fully present, and he'll make jibes. But before, okay, so here's one of the things that let me get straight to the thing I have to fix. I was reading this part about the letter bet. So here we are. Greg, you see me?
Yes, I see.
Here's the gematria of beit is 412. Okay, and also the word ha'ot, meaning the token or the sign, right, or the letter, also has the gematria of 412. And it's used when God is telling Moses to lead the people out of Egypt. So you can look up this. Here's the reference: Exodus chapter 3, verse 12. Okay. So the word ha'ot, the same word, is used again in the warning about the false prophets, where you go ahead and you can look that up. Okay. And then we have the word ta'ava, which is the same letters, by the way. It's a permutation of
like taiva.
Yeah, that's right. They, in the Ashkenazi, like
taiva.
Taiva is a desire.
The mitzvah is in the koisel with the Torah, with the taivas.
Right. So basically, what we're doing is we're threading a connection between the name of the letter beit, okay, the word ha'ot, which means a sign or a signal, and the word ta'ava, which means a desire. How are these things all connected? They all have the same numerical value, and they're also connected in their meaning. So let's see.
By the way, what time is your class or whatever you have to go?
It's in a couple of minutes, so it's like in 13 minutes. That's why I'm going to speed through this.
Gotcha.
Okay. All right. So, so we have the word tava right here. Okay. Tava has the gematria of 412. It means desire. It means longing, lust, craving, delight, or desirable thing, depending on the context. It is first used to describe how Hava felt about the tree of knowledge. Okay. And when the woman saw that the tree was good for food and that it was a delight. See the word delight? In Hebrew, that's tava.
You know, when I hear the word delight, I think of
I know.
No, James Lipton. It is a delight.
Oh, I think of delight.
Inside the actor studio.
Groove is in the heart.
Oh, that's delight. D-E-E. I have their vinyls. D-E-E-L-I-T-E.
I thought that super DJ Dimitri was a Hasidic Jew.
What the heck? Why?
No, because he had that kind of it looked like he had it looked like he had payas and a beard. It was he's kind of Jewy looking, except that he's Greek. I didn't know that. I thought he was like a Jew. Anyway, so yes, and it is a delight. Right? That's James Lipton being
inside the actor studio. But that's actually Will Ferrell doing James Lipton.
Yeah. Will Ferrell's take on James Lipton is that he's just like he's the most condescending. Everything that he says as a compliment is really sarcastic, deepest sarcasm anybody's ever heard.
Yeah.
He's like a masterwork, a magnum opus.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So here we have this quote from Genesis chapter 3, verse 6, right? And when the woman saw that the tree was good for food and that it was a delight, so that's the word ta'ava, delight.
Interesting. So that taiva was used as that, as opposed to like a taiva, like a something that like
a delight is
a desire. You know, we all have our taivas or desires, things that we desire.
So that's what a delight is. A delight is something that is very desirable, very very attractive.
Oh, like delicatessen.
Well, that's like a delicacy, which is
delicacy.
Yeah, it's related to delight because it's like it's obviously there's something in common there.
Yeah,
something that you crave. It's a craving. Something that looks like something you want to crave.
Yeah.
Okay. So and then we have this word again, and this is where I screwed up last time. Ta'ava. Okay, same word, and it's used to describe the craving of the mixed multitude. the Erev Rav,
Mhm.
for the kind of food that they ate in Egypt. Okay, and here's the quote. And the mixed multitude that was among them, meaning the rabble of Egyptians and people from other nations that wanted to join the Jews. Okay, the mixed multitude. All right, they wanted the food that they ate back in Egypt. Okay, so and the mixed multitude that was among them, upon them fell a lust, and the children of Israel also wept again and said, "Who shall give us meat to eat?"
Yeah.
So this lust, right, that was among them, right? So one more time. And the mixed multitude that was among them fell a lust,
Mhm.
a lusting. That's ta'ava. Okay, so it's a similar idea. Okay, so now we're going to continue. I actually got the next page. Okay, all right. So it was okay. So which we did eat. So they continue like this is what we ate back in Egypt. That's what we wanted, and we had it for nothing. We had cucumbers, melons, and leeks, and the onions and the garlic. But now our soul is dried away. There is nothing at all besides this manna before our eyes. So they're talking about the manna, like like with contempt, because manna was angel food, and it didn't have that earthy like quality. You had to actually put in some effort, use your mind to concentrate, and you could make it taste like anything you want. But people wanted that right away. That bacon, crap. Okay, so okay, so it was used there. Okay, and again, it's used when God gives the Israelites permission to eat meat. Okay, so here's the right when the soul desireth to eat flesh, right? So that's from Deuteronomy chapter 12, verse 20. Okay, so and then again, we have ta'aveh is used similar. It's used in the discussion about the tithe of corn, wine, oil, and the firstlings of the herd.
Mhm.
The firstlings are firstborn animals. Okay, of the herd and the flock, and the eating of the tithing before God. Okay, here's another thing, and so here it says, and thou shalt bestow that money on all the desires, right? The top. Okay. So from this, we draw the interesting lesson that it is the nature of the vessel, that's the bet, right? The bait, the vessel, okay? We established that in the previous, okay? To crave. It is the nature of the vessel to crave. So the bet is craving, okay? To lust for the light to fill it. It wants to receive the light from the olive. Okay, and the fulfillment of this lusting is not necessarily guaranteed to bring the light. For the lusting may be only an attachment to an appearance without essence. Okay, so the fulfillment of such lusting does not reveal any light.
Mhm.
It only increases the desire. Therefore, we have to be particularly careful to cleave to God that our desire be always for the essence, for the holiness, and not for an empty surface appearance. Okay? And when our desire is for holiness, then we find that desire fulfilled is a tree of life. Okay, instead of a tree of good and evil, which every example except for the tithing was an example of that of good and evil. So the point is that there's an association between bait, the name of the letter bait, the shape of the letter, because bait means house. The shape of the letter is like a house. It's like a container. It's a vessel. Okay, the vessel has, which is very similar to the concept of Eve, Chava, right? It has a desire. Okay, its desire is for holiness, but it can be tricked, like it was tricked with the tree of knowledge. Okay, and also the word ha'ot, the sign, the signal. Okay, because the letter bet is also the actual first letter of the Torah, so it is the letter. And there's this idea that all of the Torah, all the rest of the Torah, is contained within the first book of the Torah, of Bereshit. And then it goes further to say that the whole Torah, even with the whole book of Bereshit, is contained in the first chapter of Bereshit. It's all encoded in there. And then it says that the first chapter of Bereshit, along with the rest of the Torah, is contained in the first verse. And it continues in the path until you get that everything is contained within the letter Bet. Okay? And when we see the letter Bet, not in the Torah scroll, but in the Chumash, you see there's a dot in there. Sometimes a Bet, you can see there's a dot inside the Bet, right? So all the Torah and all the knowledge of all the world is contained within that little dot in the Bet, in the first Bet of the Torah, okay? Which is the oath, the sign, the signal, the point, okay? All of these ideas are intertwined with each other, and the fact that they have the same gematria is, it kind of like emphasizes that. So that was a rushed tikkun from my previous screw up. So now there's another quick thing I wanted to show the folks at home. So here you can freeze this. This is from Rabbi Ginsburg's book, The Hebrew Letters. This is a summary of things and ideas associated with the letter Bet. So you can freeze that and take a look at that. It's very, very, very important. I never did it with Aleph, so here's for Aleph too. Okay, you can look at that at your leisure. Okay, and then there's this other thing. Remember we were talking about the letter Bet and how in the Torah world, up, when we think about up, like right now, if you ask a kid, where's up? They'll say north, right? Think of a map. North seems like the high place for us. That's where, but from the Torah world, north is to the left. The high place, the high point of the earth, right? The highest point of the earth is viewed as the east, with Jerusalem as the center, okay? So that would be up here. Here's Jerusalem. Okay, that's kind of like,
it's kind of like that map. You ever see that map of Jerusalem where it's like it's basically the center of the world? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? Like here. It's like this. It looks like a flower. It's a Bunting's map.
Are you going to show it?
Here. Here I can maybe share mine here. This thing. Let me share my screen. Okay. Yeah, this. You can see it, right?
Actually, no.
Really? I'm sharing my screen. Why is it not? Really?
Okay. So hold on. I'm looking at the time. I just wanted to get this idea out. And then, hang on a second. Do you see what I'm showing on the screen?
No, because I'm sharing my screen, but I guess it's not. That's weird.
Or maybe the folks at home can see your screen right now.
Maybe. Hold on. Let me see what they see. Let me check what they see.
It says on my thing, it says you are screen sharing.
Yeah, they could see my screen.
Okay, so in order for me to see the map that you're talking about, I'm gonna have to watch the video when you post it.
Okay.
Right?
Anyway, it's the oops. Let me unshare. You share. Oops. Desktop. Oops. Let me correct. Google Chrome. Oh, I don't want to share mine.
Today's Tuesday?
Can you what?
Is today Tuesday?
Today's Monday.
Oh, today's Monday?
Yes.
Dude, I'm not learning with the rabbi. I learn with the rabbi on Tuesdays.
Oh, why'd you think it was Tuesday?
I don't know why I thought it was Tuesday.
That's funny.
I haven't slept well in recent days.
I hear. Well, anyway, so you can go back to, you can share your screen.
It says that you are screen sharing right now.
Oh, so I'm gonna on screen share myself. Hold on.
You have a thing that says stop share.
Oh, stop share. There we go. Okay, there you're back to you.
Okay. Can you see it?
All right. Basically, type in like map of Jerusalem, center of the world.
I suck at typing.
There you go. Yeah.
Still use two fingers. Just like,
It's funny.
People can hear that.
This map.
Okay, so you mean this old time?
Yeah. So it's just like, it's interesting. Like, you see like Europa. Just click on any one of them, whatever. Europa, Africa.
I mean,
Asia.
that's a decent representation, because
Interesting,
really
right?
Israel really is what links those three continents.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, it's what
Mhm.
strategically, there's a few places that are more strategic. But
It's also the logo of the Jerusalem Center. I think it's the here for studies or something. Jerusalem Center for JCPA, Jerusalem Center for Public Affairs. That's the logo of their thing.
Jerusalem Center for Public Affairs. Okay.
Yeah, Council, whatever. It was their logo. I don't know what it is now. But anyway.
So do you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So here's the map of this is how presented to us, right? Everybody's familiar with this. It's Greenland. This is the North Pole up here. Okay. They're not showing Antarctica for some reason, but it's down. There is a continent down. Okay. So, so for us, this right here, that's north. That's our high point on Earth. So I'm just gonna, as a visual. When we look up, like this right here, that's our point. Okay. And for everybody nowadays, they made, sorry, this is their high point. Okay. So yeah, I just wanted to create that perspective. Okay.
Mhm.
So to an ancient Israelite, this is how they want to see the map. Okay. And that's why the bet is in this shape, because see the North Pole, that's to the left. Okay. And that's where, the difficulties come from. Okay. It's like this mysterious hidden place that's associated with Gevura. Okay. And remember, Gevura is always from the left side.
Yeah.
Okay, so coming in. Okay. So that's just like what I wanted to share, some of those things from Bet. There's like, let's see, there's one more thing. Screenshot. Sefer Yetzirah states that the letters of the Hebrew alphabet are like stones, and each whole word is like a house. Just as a house is built of stones, so is a word built of letters. Okay? The comparison of words to houses is enhanced by the fact that both of these terms are spelled with the same letters in Hebrew. See, habayit, right, a house, and then you have teva, which means a word. Okay. By the way, teva also means, like in Hebrew, Noah's Ark was called the teva. Okay. So when he went into the ark, on a certain level, he went into the word.
Yeah, I always wondered why it was called the table, like nature. It's called nature. It's like kind of weird.
It's he went into a dimension, a special dimension that's hidden within the letters.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a whole separate topic about Noah and what kind of ship he actually went into and where did he actually go, and all that kind of stuff. But there's obviously a very important connection with this word habayit, which means this could actually be interpreted as the letter bait, the letter bait, the letter B, the letter bet, right? Habayit. It means the house, but it also means the letter bayit. Okay, and teva. So you guys see that habayit and teva are permutations of each other. Okay, and then we have this. Okay, so we have bet is related to this word bina, okay, which means understanding. Okay, and it is the offspring of chachma. Okay, and it's hinted by its name, beit. Okay, its letters can be arranged as beit yud, bet yud, meaning the daughter of yud. Okay? And that is the understanding we talked about this idea of daughter. Remember the flow chart from before? So if you review the first episode of Bet, you see it there. So it's this understanding of daughter. So all right, this is just. I wanted to show people this, so they didn't think I made it up, because I wrote it in my on that whiteboard. It didn't look very professional. Okay, that's it. That's it.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
What do you think about now the prospect or the idea, as far-fetched as it may sound, of moving the kevers of Rabbi Nachman, Baal Shem Tov, and all the other tzaddikim who are in Ukraine, moving them to Israel?
I would have done it many years ago.
Really?
Yeah. Okay. I think they're out of their minds, or not
Who
doing
is? Oh, for not doing it.
Yeah.
I think Hashem is sending us a message. I think it's time.
Every year, somebody gets stabbed. Some dumb chassid is like, some of these guys, they're so like,
they don't care.
oblivious to any kind of like, some of these guys, they don't understand. They're like a millimeter away from like destruction, and they have no idea that like the people that they're talking to are just fuming with furious, just absolute murderous hatred.
Yeah.
And they just go there, oh, let's go, it's Rosh Hashanah.
Yeah. 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 So how do you think it can even happen? You know what I did? In my naivete, I just tweeted out, it's time to move Rabbi Nachman's tomb to Israel. And I tagged, I don't know why I did this. I tagged that scum Bennett. I also tagged, Ben Gvir, the only remotely normal person who probably is not Erev Rav.
I'm ashamed to say that I know nothing about him.
Itamar Ben Gvir is the head of the Otzma, basically the Kahanist party in Israel. He's the only like real Jew in the Knesset, basically.
I heard of Otzma. Okay.
Yeah, him and Haredim. I tagged Sar, who's whatever, but who knows? Maybe he'll wake up. And I tagged Bibi, who's also whatever, but whatever. Sometimes you never know. Sometimes maybe these people think to themselves, maybe I can get my merit back somehow. And,
Were you the one telling me the story about the guy, the gangster in Tel Aviv, who he was like a drug lord, but he like anonymously donated Shabbos meals for many, many years to like hundreds of poor religious Jewish families?
That was not me telling that story.
Can't remember where I heard it.
That's an interesting story. I think I may have even heard it, but I did. That was not me who told that story.
Must have been a share that I listened to.
Mm.
So I'm driving around, I'm listening to like YouTube Shurim, and I lose track of who it is that's saying it. But basically, you have people. Oh no, we read about it. We read it in that. Remember in the Erev Rav episode.
Mm-hmm.
It was in that book that we were reading.
Mm-hmm.
Right, Rivka Levi. What was the author's name?
I think so. Yeah.
So, she was telling that story how, because we were reading about all these characteristics of how to recognize an Erev Rav, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then at some point, she said, you guys might be worried because we all seem to have some of these characteristics, right? So in the course of explaining how you have all of these dichotomies, right? You have all these contradictory elements in the same person. So she used that guy as an example about this gangster. He was eventually murdered, but and he did horrible things, but he tried to balance it out in some way by doing these kind of anonymous acts of kindness. So nobody's a full Erev Rav.
No, of course not.
That was the idea. But, yeah. By the way, you ever see this before? You see the screen?
Let me see. Oh, no, I actually haven't.
So these are, there's a couple of pens that are traditionally used, for the sofer to write Ktav Stam.
Mm-hmm.
And These are the reed pens. These are like the original ones. Yeah, they're made from bamboo.
Yeah.
And then they
Cool.
create a special edge. And then here's a close-up. Well, not a close-up, but here's a pretty good angle on the tip. They're used a lot by Sephardi's, Sofrim, and the Ashkenazim use turkey feathers like this.
Well, because that's what we had access to in Europe.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So
the whole science of this is so crazy.
What did you say?
No, it's a whole science to this. It's like really crazy how there's so much that goes in, like, like I started keeping Shabbat and all these things, and I realized there's so much that goes into Jewish life, but then you realize that's the whole point. It's that it's meant to be immersive in the sense of, it's meant to be immersive. It's life. It's not like just religion. We're meant to be interacting with objects and.
Right. So no, like basically every single thing associated with Torah, with mitzvot, everything, it's supposed to be studied in the most minutest detail possible, because every little aspect of the mitzvah of carrying it out is containing information. Everything is a way of storing information to let you know something about God. It has to be done like this. So, for instance, do you see this right here?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is supposed to be like the actual thickness, right, of the tip of the pen, and that represents the thickness of the stroke. So this is the minimum measurement. Okay, so whatever this ends up being, that's the standard measurement
of
the letters in reference to every other letter.
Okay? It can't be wider than a certain thing, and it can't be thinner, right?
Right. So,
and they also can't be too close, and they can't be too far apart.
Right. But you see this right here?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is the bet, right? And it's supposed to be 3 tip widths from top to bottom. You could see that. Here's 1 tip width, 2 and 3, and you could see that it lines up perfectly. Okay.
You know what somebody once told me?
Yeah.
Because I was in Israel, you're like always waiting on bus lines or something, and there's always people, like crowding and packed. And I said that I'm not used to this. This is when I first moved to Israel, because I know in America people like to keep their distance. They have a concept of personal space. And the guy told me, he was like, in the Torah, when you write a Sefer Torah, the ideal thing is that the letters cannot be too far apart. They can be close, but not too close. They can't be touching each other. So he was hinting to me that, it's okay that in Israel people are closer to each other than not, right? It's better that way. But the key to the whole equation is, that we're not so close that we're pushing each other and touching each other all the time.
Yeah,
it's okay to be close. It's okay to be close.
We have to take the example of the letters, right?
Yeah.
Each letter has to have its own defined space.
Defined space, but not too far apart. Because you leave Israel and people in the West are very, very far apart. Like you said, and neighbors don't talk. And the letters are very far apart.
I was watching this show about Sweden. It was like some kind of comedy, but apparently this is true, where it's rude to say hi to people in the hallway or to make eye contact with people on a public transportation or something like that. I mean, it's not like New York where it's dangerous to do that, but I'm saying like it's not considered rude.
That's like my sister told me when she went to Japan. She told me like people in Japan are like, it's like that in Japan. Like people like don't form like crazy bonds. They don't have like maybe like 1 or 2 friends, like real friends. They have like a lot of acquaintances, but like very few real friends. And they don't form like these close bonds with people. It's very strange. The whole thing is very, very, very strange.
No, there's like an epidemic of loneliness in Japan. That's why you have all these, you got these like love dolls that they have, and suicide, and robots and video games, and
it's crazy. It's crazy.
You know, they have the suicide forest just outside of Tokyo, next to Mount Fuji.
That's insane.
Yeah, it says that you could feel the deep, dark, evil energy of that place.
What do they do? People just come there to like do harakiri and stuff?
I mean, probably most of them don't do harakiri, but they just hang themselves.
Yeah.
Or they shoot themselves. I don't know.
It's crazy.
It's not very nice. It's not very pleasant.
Yeah.
So there is something that we could talk about if you're interested. I don't know if you are, but
what is it?
Remember we were talking about the 6,000 years?
Yeah, I'm curious about that.
Okay, so I'm looking for.
While you do that, I'm going to get something really quickly from the fridge. That's cool with you.
Can you get me something too? You got a Diet Coke? I want a Diet
We didn't develop that technology. Well, actually, no, we did develop the technology. I just don't have it on my screen.
Yeah. Dead Space. I wish I could turn on some elevator music for you folks until he comes back.
All right.
Hang on, now I went to get something. Give me a second.
Huh. Ooh, 20 days. Crazy. Ladies and gentlemen, we're getting serious now. We're getting very serious. There's a company in Japan that helps people disappear. That's insane. That's interesting. Let's look that up. Company in Japan. You hear about this?
All right, another 30 seconds.
Sho Hattori, who started a night moving company in the 1990s. The heck? What? So weird. What is weird? What is this?
Dude, what's going on over there? You're freaking out about it. What's going on, man? I'm back.
One of our viewers, Ryan Walsingham, he said that there's a company in Japan that helps people disappear. Check this out. Tired of life, people are disappearing, leaving their families, companies helping to start a new life. What happens? Johatsu. Let's see. Johatsu in Japan. When people suddenly disappear to leave everything and start a new life, they are called Johatsu. This is happening here for a long time. Often you must have seen such people who think about starting a new life after getting upset with life. You might find it a bit awkward thinking about this, but it actually happens. Companies charge big money for this work. There were reports from many places, from America to Germany and Britain. When people gave up everything after getting upset with life, these people suddenly disappeared, leaving their home and family, even job, to start a new life. In most cases, even after searching people, no clue is found. Something similar happens in Japan as well. Or say that this is the most commonly seen in Japan. These people who never look back to their family are called Johatsu. People vanish in Japan, in Japanese. That is fly off as steam. People who have disappeared are also addressed with this word. There have also been cases where the missing person left the house for a job as usual, but never returned. One such person, at 42 years old, told the story. According to a media report, he said, "I was fed up with human relationships So I took a small suitcase and disappeared. The reason behind the sudden disappearance of people is sometimes heavy debt, sometimes family tension. Companies help people in the process of disappearance. Such operations are called night moving service. These companies help people to live a new life away from their present life. Arrangements are made for people to stay in secret places. For this, companies charge huge amounts. Sho Hattori, who started the company, Night Moving Company, in the 1990s when the economic situation in Japan was deteriorating, says, generally, the reason behind disappearance is positive, such as enrolling in university, getting a new job, or marriage. Why do people disappear in Japan? But there are also sad reasons behind this, such as being thrown out of university, losing a job, or getting away from a stalker. Hattori initially believed that people disappeared due to financial constraints, but now they have come to know that the reasons behind this are also social. What we do is only help people start another life. Hiroki Nakamori, a sociologist who has researched Jihatsu for decades, says that the term was first used for people who disappeared in the 60s. Divorce cases in Japan are also low because people think it's better to go missing than to complete the formalities of the law. You should do that. Nakamura says it's very easy to disappear in Japan. One of the reasons behind this is that Japan has a very strict privacy law. Unless the police suspect a conspiracy, such as a crime or an accident, they do not search for the missing person. This is the reason why such people can even withdraw money from an ATM. In such a situation, the only way is to hire a private detective to search for the family, or he can only wait.
Okay, I know what's really going on here.
What?
These people are paying the service,
mm-hmm.
okay, to disappear them. Instead, what happens is they just kill them, and they throw their body in a mulcher, in a wood chipper, and disappear. That way, they don't have to actually provide the service. They just take the money, and no one's looking for them, right? And that's a way to keep the population down.
No.
What do you think?
I guess. If you want to go morbid with that.
Yeah, but think about it. Like it's genius, right? It's a service that you can take money and you don't have to provide the service because who's going to check?
No.
Like you want it to be disappeared, so you got
disappeared. Yeah, exactly.
Right? So this is, I had this book for a while on Kindle. This is by is it Pesach or Pinchas Winston?
Pinchas
Winston. Okay. Yeah, Pinchas Winston. Rabbi Pinchas Winston. Okay. And this guy talks about Mashiach so much that he might as well be a Lubavitcher, but don't say that to him. So, but I found some incredible stuff. Okay, you're going to see. So talking about the end of days introduction. This book was written 20 years ago. Okay. The concept of Mashiach is both simple and complicated one. The term itself is a Hebrew word meaning anointed one. As kings descended from the tribe of Yehuda, they were initiated by being anointed with a special olive oil. Outside of the Jewish world, the word over time changed forms in different languages, and it became Messiah in English. So, in short, you have 13 Principles of Faith by Maimonides, the Rambam. He says, this is the 12th principle. I believe with perfect faith in the coming of Mashiach, and even though he may tarry, nevertheless, I will wait for him every day that he will come. So the understanding of this 12th principle of faith is clear. Jews have an obligation to believe that Mashiach could arrive at any day or at any moment. So we have an obligation to believe that. One would think that based upon this directive, that believing Jews, meaning the Orthodox Jews, would live their lives that take this idea into account, right? So when something important in life is imminent, it usually occupies much of the daily discussion. And you'd imagine it would play a role in one's decision-making process. However, for many Jews over the centuries, this has not necessarily been the case. In the following address to a small audience by Rabbi Yeheskel Levenstein, the Mashgiach of the famed Mir Yeshiva in Poland before the war, and the Yeshiva of Jerusalem and Panovich after the war, could easily have been addressed to much of the Jewish world. Here it is. The Sefer This is his address. The Sefer Mitzvot Hakatan wrote in his explanation of the positive mitzvah of I am God, your God, who took you out of Egypt, right? Shemos chapter 20, verse 2. Shemos is Exodus, okay? So that it means one must know that he who created heaven and earth alone controls the world alone, above and below. He added that this mitzvah is the basis for what the rabbis teach, that at the time of a person's judgment after death, they ask him, did you anticipate redemption? Somehow anticipating redemption is related to the I am God, your God, who took you out of Egypt.
Yeah.
I mean, we could see the connection with the redemption, right? The getting taken out of Egypt part. Okay. So after a person dies and they go to the upper world, they're asked the question, did you anticipate the redemption? That's spoken about here in Gemara Shabbos. Okay. Where is this mitzvah written? Actually, it comes from the same verse. Just as I am God, your God, who took you out of Egypt, means that we are expected to believe that God redeemed us from Egypt. It also means, I also want you to believe that I, God, your God, will gather you in and redeem you in mercy a second time. According to this belief in the future redemption, is included in the first of the 10 commandments, okay? Because that right there, I am God, your God, who took you out of Egypt, that's the first commandment. That's not the full. It says, you shall have no other gods before me.
La trama dell'origine del SARS-CoV-2.
Exactly. Amen.
Sorry about that.
Okay. If we check ourselves, it seems that we are very far from having faith in the future redemption when it comes to the arrival of Mashiach and the resurrection of the dead and the resurrection of the dead. We are silent, as if embarrassed to speak up about them, as if we have given up them altogether. And this is what he was saying this like 80 years ago, right? So the words of the Sefer Mitzvot Hakatan should cause our hearts to tremble. And anyone who is not involved with these matters is far from having any true faith. Who knew that Rabbi Levenstein from Mir was a Lubavitcher? Who knew? Right? Okay. Indeed, the situation is quite backwards. For even though the concept of a messianic redeemer originates in Judaism, it is others who picked up on this idea and who speak of the concept continuously, although they have created their own version of who the Messiah is. And in truth, this is one of the reasons why traditional Judaism has dropped the subject for the time being. The many distortions and abuse of the concept have left a bad taste in the mouths of Jews throughout the centuries, especially since for almost 2,000 years, the Catholic and derivative churches tried to impose their concept of Messiah at pain of death and torture. However, there were also internal disturbances that created severe resistance to the concept of Mashiach in the end of days, right? Like Shabtai Tzvi, debacle in Europe around the year 1650, claiming to be the Mashiach of the Jewish people. He successfully convinced masses of downtrodden Jews that the final redemption was close at hand. People sold their home. They sold their home. This is right after Bogdan Khmelnytsky in Ukraine, by the way. That was like the first major European Holocaust. People sold their homes in distant lands and made travel arrangements to Eretz Yisrael, and even threatened hostile Gentiles with revenge. Right? Like they had enemies, Gentile enemies from their homeland, from where they came from, and they, normally they wouldn't feel that safe enough to threaten them because they were just overwhelmed by numbers. Now that they're leaving, they could start talking shit, basically.
Zero note in 15 seconds.
What are you doing, man?
I don't know. Oh, by the way, I was just saying that I put on headphones just now because you started talking about the Shia and all these kind of things, and the guy who's above me is a minister. I told you the story, right?
So that's the guy who really has to hear it. Okay.
Not at this moment.
He's not ready. Got it. Okay.
Yes, you are not ready.
Okay. So one cannot begin to imagine the psychological and political fallout that resulted when Shabtai Tzvi, given a choice of conversion to Islam or death by the Sultan of the Ottoman Empire, chose the former, and he converted to Islam. So the ripple effects of this spiritual crisis for the Jewish people reach even until this day, and resulted in all kinds of resolutions to avoid such fiascos in the future. We have the right?
Mhm.
Or so-called the Jewish Enlightenment, right?
Yeah.
Which came on the heels of Shabtai Tzvi, only served to further bury the concept of Jewish messianism. Its motto being, be a cosmopolitan man in the street and a Jew in your home.
Yeah.
So Haskalah dramatically moved away from Torah consciousness with the desire of embracing modern Western culture and nanobots.
Yeah.
Nanobots. However, more recently, other familiar reasons have interfered with Jewish connection to the concept of Mashiach and redemption. The general rule is when Jews prosper materialistically in exile, the need for redemption and Mashiach dwindles. Okay? That's all these weenies that are on our side right now. That's what they won't speak up. Indeed, the thought that Mashiach could come at any moment and signal the end of this fourth and final exile sends a chill up and down the back of many quote unquote believing Jews. There's even a joke to this effect. We talked about this. Listen, Yaakov was a simple but devoted Jew who never had time to learn much Torah, though he longed to. The best he could do while applying a meager living was listen attentively to the rabbi's Dvar Torah each Shabbos morning after services. Then he would return home to his wife and lovingly repeat the rabbi's wise words at Shabbos lunch. However, one Shabbos, Yaakov returned home, white in the face and somewhat hysterical, and his wife was terribly concerned. Yaakov, she cried, what is the matter? What has happened to you? You look like you've seen a ghost. But poor Yaakov could only repeat over and over again, the rabbi, the rabbi, the rabbi. The rabbi what? His wife tried to understand. Did something terrible. Did something terrible happen to the rabbi, God forbid? Yaakov, finally calming down somewhat, answered his wife, no. He said, it is what the rabbi said today. What could he have said that could shake you up like this? So he said that this Mashiach fellow is going to come soon. And we'll have to sell our houses and belongings and what?
Yeah.
His wife said, raising her voice, and move to Israel. Yaakov blurted out as he put his face in his hands and cried, oi, what will be? Yaakov, she said in a calming tone of voice, Yaakov, calm down, it will be okay. You have to have faith. But just like God saved our people from the Crusades and the Holocaust, he'll save us from Mashiach too. Obviously it's a joke, but okay. If there were not a strong element of truth to this joke, it might be funny. However, instead of laughing, we have reason for grave concern that so many Jews not only do not look forward to the Mashiach daily, but fear that his coming will interfere with life as they know it. Okay, this is the motivation for this book. It is a compilation of sources and ideas that show us how crucial the concept of reality and the reality of Mashiach is to our lives and our very survival as Jewish individuals and the Jewish nation in the given role as the light unto the nations. Who knew that Pinchas Winston was a Lubavitcher? Okay, so talking about the end of days. The topic of the end of days, as mentioned already, is a touchy one. Therefore, before going any further, it is important to answer some of the more prevalent questions that arise when discussing this subject. Question 1, is it permissible to speak about the end of days, namely the days of Mashiach? Hey, Greg, you want to read some of this?
It used to not be. I read this book called When Mashiach Comes by Rabbi Yosef something.
I think he mentioned
Sephardi guy, yeah, and basically there's all these sources that he wrote. He mentioned like there's like 10 people that say you can't, and then there's like a Barbanel who says you can because the closer you get to Mashiach, you can.
Right, he's going to
talk about. I believe
the
Ramban said you can. One of those guys.
Yeah.
Basically, there's like a couple of people said you can, and then like that's why we can. That's what we are. Yeah.
So he says it right here. Look. The truth is, many sources do including the Talmud in Sanhedrin 97a. Countless other books have been written solely on the subject over the generations by very respected rabbis. More recently, the book When Mashiach Comes, Halachic.
There you go.
Halachic and Agadic Perspective was published in 1994. An English version of the Hebrew work Otzrot Acharit Hayamim by Rabbi Yehuda Chayun. Okay.
Yeah.
Question 2. what then is forbidden regarding discussing the end of days? The Talmud says, Rav Shmuel ben Nachmani said in the name of Rav Yonatan, may the spirit of those who calculate the end expire. For they say, since the predetermined time has arrived, and Mashiach has yet to come, he will never come. Meaning if somebody calculates a date and Mashiach doesn't show up, then people will be despair and say, oh, he's never going to come.
Yeah, and then this person deserves whatever.
Right. So these rabbis lived 1,800 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, and then he says, whoever forecasts the date of Mashiach's arrival has no place in the world to come. That's okay.
Yeah.
Now, hence, we see that the Talmud is only concerned about making calculations regarding the precise day for Mashiach's arrival, since errors in such calculations usually result in national disappointment and perhaps revelation of false messiahs. The Rambam mentions this in his introduction, Chelik, the 11th chapter of Sanhedrin, where he writes, one should not assign a date and explain verses homiletically in order to pinpoint the date of Mashiach's arrival. Furthermore, the Talmud wrote, when Rev Zera happened upon scholars who were engaged in calculating the date of the coming of Mashiach, he told them, I beg you, do not postpone it. For it has been taught, three things come when the mind is occupied. When the mind is occupied otherwise. Mashiach, something that is lost, and a scorpion. Okay, that's an agadic statement. So what he's saying is that there are three things that arrive when you're not focusing on it, when you're not thinking about it for a moment. Mashiach is one of them. Okay? Now, so I'm sure a lot of people use this as an argument for why they don't concern themselves with it. Additionally, there's also the concern that believing in a specific date will prevent a person from expecting Mashiach earlier than that date. Okay, this is a violation of the principle of anticipating him any day. That's the 12th principle of faith, right? So failure to anticipate the possible arrival of Mashiach at any time, says the Rambam, can give such a Jew the halachic status of a heretic. Question 3. Yet we see that great rabbis over the ages did precisely that and were not chastised for doing so. They calculated specific moments for auspicious moments where there was a very high likelihood that if we merited, he would have come. So they did that. So this is because they weren't chastised for doing so. So this is because the prohibition of calculating the arrival date of Mashiach has been interpreted differently by many rabbis, to name a few. The Ramban, you mentioned him. Now, guys, the Rambam and the Ramban are two separate individuals who lived pretty close to each other in the timeline, but the Ramban came a little bit later. Okay. And he was a master Kabbalist. Okay, so the prohibition of the Talmud only applied to earlier generations. This is what the Ramban said. Only to earlier generations. Now that we are on the eve of redemption, there is no prohibition. He said this in the 1200s. Okay, so since the 1200s, it's been not such a big deal. The Zohar, which is published in 1380, it was published in that year. Okay, it says it is not God's will that the date of Mashiach's arrival be revealed to man, but when the date draws near, even children will be able to make the calculation. That's the Zohar's commentary to Bereshit. Okay. Here we have the Abarbanel. Okay. It is forbidden to make the calculation based upon astrology. However, it is permitted to calculate a date based upon Tanakh, verses in the Torah. Okay. This is the book that he wrote it in, Mayane Yeshua. And here we have the Vilna Gaon. Okay. From here, what I have just written, you can calculate the time of the final redemption. He wrote something prior to this quote, obviously. Okay. So I'll say it again. From here, you can calculate the time of the final redemption if, God forbid, we do not merit to bring it earlier. However, I have imposed an oath in the name of the God of Israel on the reader of this, that he should not reveal it. This is where it's from. Anybody who wants to read it? Do you think the oath still applies? That's an interesting question. Something to ask Something to ask Rabbi Kessin.
Yeah.
And then we have now we have the Malbim. Situation is like that of a father and a son traveling a long distance. As they start out, the son begins to ask when they will arrive, right?
Yeah,
like,
that's a
are we there
famous
yet?
thing. Yeah.
Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Right? And of course, the father does not answer. However, as they near the town, the son asks the same question, and then the father feels like, he readily answers that it's only a short while before they reach. So too it is with us. Now that the time is clearly approaching, this is the Malbim saying this like 200 years ago, right? 150 years. So we cannot help but notice and interpret signs all around us that tell of the impending Geulah. As the time of the Kates means the end. Yeah, but it also means summer.
Yeah.
In Hebrew.
There you go. Yeah. Kids,
So as the time of the Kates grows near, the doubts will become smaller, and at the Kates, all doubts will be removed. As the time grows closer, the uncertainty recedes in the wake of the increasingly abounding wisdom. Introduction to Daniel.
By the way, you have a cat called Summer. You should call him Kate's the cat.
The cat, Summer was actually the second name that she got because for some reason, actually came from somersault.
Oh, that's funny.
Because she's a very clumsy cat, and she would fall and she would like roll frequently. So we called her somersault. So, okay. No, I'm sorry. Her name was Tumble. We called that was her first name. We changed it to Summer because we were hoping that she would stop. We didn't want to promote the idea of tumbling, so we wanted her to be more agile and somersault.
Does she still do that?
No, she's very agile and graceful now. She doesn't even like when I bring it up. All right, question 4. What importance, if any, is there to speak about redemption and the end of days? So the Talmud states, Rava said, when they bring a person for judgment, they will say to him, did you deal faithfully in business? Did you set aside fixed times for Torah study?
Yeah.
Did you try to have children? Did you anticipate the redemption? Assuredly, this does not mean ignoring the concept of Geulah, even for the sake of other mitzvahs like the all-important mitzvah of learning Torah. On the contrary, the learning of Torah should only make one anticipate Geulah that much more. Geulah means redemption for the folks at home. And the same way it should enhance one's love of Eretz Yisrael and yearning to live there. Okay. Furthermore, Rabbi Eliyahu Lopian, who wrote in the name of Rabbi Elchanan Wasserman. Rabbi Elchanan Wasserman was like the chief pupil of the Chafetz Chaim, I believe.
Yeah.
He was murdered in the Holocaust. He was actually in America.
I didn't know that Wasserman. Wow.
He was in America, and he went back to Europe, and he was murdered.
Oh gosh.
So, right. So he wrote in the name of Rabbi Elchanan Wasserman. See, it says ZTL, right? So that's Zecher Tzadik Livracha.
Blessed memory.
Yeah, of a righteous man of blessed memory. Yeah. So this is what he said. This is what Rabbi Wasserman said. I heard in London from the holy Rabbi Elchanan Wasserman quoting the Chafetz Chaim. Listen to this. So Chafetz Chaim said that Hazal say that the war of Gog and Magog will be threefold. After the First World War, the Chafetz Chaim said that this was the first battle of Gog and Magog. And in about 25 years, in 1942, from the point of him saying it.
Yeah.
So this statement was made 25 years before 1942.
Yeah, 1970. Yeah.
So
crazy.
There would be a second world war, which would make the first one seem insignificant. And then there would be a third battle. Rav Elchanan concluded that one must suffer the pangs of Mashiach, but the wise man will quietly prepare himself during that time. Perhaps he will be worthy of seeing the comforting of Zion, that's Zion, and
Yeah.
Yerushalayim. Okay?
Yeah.
There's more. Chofetz
So
Chaim.
basically, when we're saying to people, at a Shiva, may you be comforted with the mourners of Zion, Jerusalem, we're basically saying is like, may you see Mashiach.
Yeah, right. Because that means that you'll see your, you'll see your
Your relative.
loved ones will be returned to us. So.
Mhm.
There are many other sources to this effect, all of which serve to strengthen the point. As well, there are numerous stories of pre-World War II Torah giants like the Chofetz Chaim and how they lived with the daily reality of an imminent redemption. The following perhaps sums up what is lacking from our generation, which ironically lives so close to the final redemption. Okay? It says, if I could find more colleagues who felt the same, we would go out into the fields and demand with prayer and supplication and not return home until the Jewish people received eternal salvation and redemption through the coming of Mashiach ben David. Divrei Chaim of Sons. So the Sons are a group of Hasidim, and this is their Rebbe who said this. And in the words of the great Chofetz Chaim himself, he says several times a day, we request redemption. But requesting is not enough. Listen to this. We must demand redemption, just as a worker demands his salary. For the halacha, the Jewish law, is that if he does not demand his salary, his employer need not pay him that day.
Wow.
Okay? So we have to. So the Chofetz Chaim was a Lubavitcher. We didn't know that. Right?
That's funny.
Finally, no, I'm not trying to be that cute.
Yeah.
Okay. Finally, the Vilna Gaon put the concept of redemption in these terms, as told by his student. The purpose of redemption is the true redemption and sanctification of God's name. Somehow it's God's name that's being redeemed more than anything else.
Look around you.
Yeah. According to the words of our prophets and the explanation of our teacher, the Vilna Gaon, the goal of our work is the war against Armilus.
Armilus, yeah.
Yeah.
I told you that the story about Armilus, right? I asked Rabbi Mordechai Scheinberger, real Mikubal in the old city. I asked him to his face. I was like, this is like 2012, I think. I was like, is Obama Armilus?
What do you say?
And he's like, yeah, it could possibly be. Possibly. Something like that. These people, they don't want to like go, and say things in a conclusive way, because then they're going to arouse reality to be. These are people who can like move reality. So it's like if they confirm that a question like that, it just makes things worse.
Yeah.
Anyway. Yeah, so Armilus, I know all about it.
So the goal of our work is the war against him. This Armilius guy, who carried out through the ingathering of the exiles and settling of the land for the sake of the true redemption and sanctification of God's name. We don't need to reach the appointed time, but rather the appointed time will come to us after your servants have cherished her stones and favor her dust. So the arrival of the Redeemer depends upon the building of Zion, which is Jerusalem. That's from Torah. Chapter 2, dealing with historical discrepancy. This is cool. It's kind of par for the course, as if there wasn't enough already confusion concerning Judaism and Torah, there's a historical discrepancy as well. And as is usually the case in the minds of the masses, when it comes to Judaism versus Western world, the Torah viewpoint is considered secondary to the Western opinion, even in this case, according to some Orthodox Jews. Now, he was writing this 20 years ago, and little did he know, they would also have that same feeling about medicine.
Can I tell you a story?
Yeah, of
I
course.
remember I went on a date with this girl, and she was like in seminary and this and that and the other, and she she liked. I was writing actually. I was doing blog posts in Times of Israel. This is before Times of Israel revealed themselves to be like Slimes of Israel. And she's like, she's like, I like your writing, but you should like really decouple your analyses of like geopolitical analyses from like Torah or Torah stuff. I'm like, no, that would be the point. Because, and this is like right before I, got wind of Rabbi Kess, and a friend of mine put me on because of that. I was like, any idiot can sit and do analyses. Like I can sit all day and do analyses of just like, like Ukraine, Russia, and this, just cold, kind of like technical, but to actually figure out what the hell is going on from a Torah perspective, to maybe think, oh, wait a minute, maybe the tzaddikim are arousing something in that land, the tzaddikim that are buried there, whatever it is, like maybe this is for kibbutz galios, maybe, for ingathering of the exiles of thousands of Jews that live there. To actually put that into perspective from that perspective, that's the point. And this girl's telling me, maybe you should decouple, maybe whatever. I'm just like, you know what? This is supposed to be like a Torah person, like a Torah Jew telling me this. I'm just like, wow, this is so whack. And I realized like, okay, you know what? I'm not going to continue this shidduch. Let's put it that way.
Was she hot?
It's all right, but
I had to ruin that.
Listen. Even if she is.
No, it's funny because if I'm saying like if she was hot, you would have tolerated it a little bit longer.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, there were other. It was a endemic to a bigger theme with this person,
Yeah.
And whatever. I thought it was something like maybe I could like convince the person that this is whatever, but then I realized that there's some sort of deficiencies or deficiency, and anyway.
Or a discrepancy. How about that?
Yeah, exactly.
That's my artful segue.
Yes.
Okay, so basically, it would seem that a large portion of the Orthodox Jewish and even the Hasidic Jewish community has adopted Western viewpoint, and Torah is even secondary to it. So, what do you expect? Anyway, so we're talking about a discrepancy of 167 years to be exact, which in the course of 6,000 years is not that much time. However, when it comes to placing key historical dates in their proper historical context, it is a huge amount of time with which to err. Some prominent examples include First Temple destroyed, the traditional date, meaning the Torah date, is here, 423 BC. Western date, by the way, BC means before the Common Era.
Yeah.
Okay, which is, because we don't want to say before Christ.
Yeah.
So BC was developed by Jews.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. I don't know if that's true. But,
no, that is true. Just like AD is Anno Domini.
Yeah, Anno Domini, right? The year of our Lord. So not my Lord.
So yeah, exactly. So we'll say CE, Common Era.
Yeah. Okay. So here we go. So the first temple destroyed, traditional date, 423 BC. Okay, and the Western date, this is the more accepted, fancy opinion, is 590 BC. Right? It's quite a bit. Yeah, quite a bit earlier. Okay, so Cyrus. It's a little bit. Yeah, Cyrus conquers Babylonia. Traditional date 371 BC. Western date. That's quite a discrepancy. The second temple construction, traditional date 353, Western 520. Okay, now the entire second temple period was 420 years. That's the traditional viewpoint. By the time it was destroyed in 70 CE, Western dating became more accurate around the time of Josephus. However, until that time, nations thought they ruled forever, and history was more propaganda than a record of true events. A lot hasn't changed. In the meantime, The Jewish people have been keeping track of time ever since God first told Moshe while still in Egypt. This month shall be for you the beginning of the months. It shall be for you the first of the months of the year. That's the first mitzvah, is to keep track of time correctly. This is the first mitzvah given. In fact, in the beginning of Bereshis, Rashi says the Torah could have started from this verse. Right?
Yeah.
It's the first mitzvah. Okay. All right. So this, it didn't, he offers the reason why it didn't start from this verse, but that's beside the point. So the point is that keeping time was the first commandment that God gave the Jewish people. Okay? So this wasn't just a mitzvah to sanctify the new moon each month. It was God handing over to man, specifically the Jewish people, the responsibility of keeping track of the years from that point onward. Rabbi Sadia Gaon, he lived in the 900s. He states that traditional chronology is indisputably supported by Tanakh. Rabbi Yaakov Emden, he lived in the 1600s. In his glosses to Seder Olam, he wrote, those who assume that the Second Temple stood longer than 420 and 420 years are forced to contradict the simple meaning of Scripture, which of course we do not do. However, if one counts backwards from the year 70 CE, which is the accepted year of the destruction of the Second Temple, one does not arrive at the Western date for its construction. Other sources to this effect include the Maharal, okay? He's the created the Golem of Golem fame and many other things, and the Igros Chazanish, the modern rabbi from the 20th century. Certainly, when talking about the end of days, a 167-year time discrepancy can shift the period right out of someone's lifetime. Right? That's a big deal. Therefore, it is important to this discussion to explain some of the background behind the Torah dating system. Traditional Jewish chronology is based upon dating that's found in Seder Olam, an authoritative work dating back to Talmudic times, okay? Thousands of years ago, and the Talmud itself. So Seder Olam is based upon an uninterrupted, see the word uninterrupted? Everything is capitalized. It's based upon an uninterrupted tradition of Torah and rabbinical sources, and was the basis for calculating such halachic realities as Shemitah years. However, as mentioned above, the Western dating system with which we are presently familiar was non-existent in ancient times. In such early times, events were dated from the time a new king assumed the throne, often as if the world had been created all over again. Okay? History was only fabricated to justify the king's rise to the throne and his rule. Indeed, history in ancient times, for the most part, was a propaganda tool in the hands of the present ruling autocracy, adjusted to suit the will of the existing rulership and imposed upon its countrymen and history. Unbelievable. It never changes. For this reason, much of history, through the eyes of the modern Western world, is calculated retroactive, leaving much room for gaping discrepancies in error. Okay. As well, it must be noted and appreciated that ancient secular documents were never as scrupulously preserved by so many God-fearing people, okay? Or so many nations, for that matter, as Tanakh, Seder Olam, and Talmud. What he's trying to say was that these other chronologies were not carefully preserved or calculated, except the Torah was. The rabbis throughout the ages, that was their primary goal, is to accurately transmit timeline and the information. Okay. As well, it must be noted and appreciated that ancient secular documents were never a scrupulously. Okay, I read that. It can also be pointed out that when it comes to traditional Jewish historians, going back to the time of the Gaonim, okay, 589 to 1038 CE. So the Rishonim from 1038 to 1501 CE and forward until present day, okay, Jewish date is taken to be accurate. For example, Kabbalists such as the Ramban, who lived here at 1194 to 1270 CE, he predicted dates the arrival of Mashiach based upon Kabbalah, which would have been irrelevant if the Jewish date was inaccurate. Okay. This is true of many others before and after the Ramban. Furthermore, none even addressed the possibility of Jewish historical inaccuracy, seemingly because they were confident in the ability of the previous Torah generations to accurately keep track of time, okay, and events. So there's one very crucial reason why. Because belief in God's involvement in the affairs of the Jewish people, which is called Hashgacha Pratit, right, makes the date and timing of an event meaningful and insightful in itself, and therefore worthy of accurate and precise recording. So this can hardly be said of Western dating, which believes in randomly evolving history. Okay. For example, the Jewish temple was destroyed in the Jewish year 3,338, which, when written in its corresponding Hebrew letters, is Shin Lamed Chet, which spells the word Shlach, which is the word itself. The word itself means to send, and it is an allusion to the sending of the Jewish people into Babylonian exile. Another example of the confidence of the great rabbis of the past in the existing Hebrew chronology comes later in history from the following quote, which was heard from our teacher, the Rabbi Harav Chaim from Volozhin, and he, in that the Gra, the Vilna Gaon, said that the book of Mishnah Torah, Devarim, in each parsha alludes. This is Devarim is the word Mishnah Torah and Devarim those are synonymous with each other, and Devarim is the book of Deuteronomy. Okay, so it says that in each parsha in Deuteronomy alludes to what will happen in each 100 years of the 6th millennium, which we are in. Okay, so we have 10 parshas. Okay, corresponding to 10 periods of 100 years each. So Rav Chaim asked him, quote, "Where are we hinted to in Parshas Ki Seitze?" And the Gaon of Vilna, he answered him that the Gaon's name was hinted to in the words, quote, Evan Shlema, in Deuteronomy 25, chapter 25, verse 15. Okay. So Evan Shlema means a complete stone, necessary for the accurate weights and measures of the Torah that the Torah expects us to use when doing business. Okay. However, the stones were used for weight, right? If you were selling somebody a certain measurement of wheat, for instance, right? You had to have a stone that weighed the exact measurement. So that's how to conduct business in an honest way. So that's why it's a very important idea, this complete stone, this Evan Shlema. I think we've lost Greg again. Greg, have we lost you?
No, I'm here.
Okay, because you're not, people can't see your lovely face. Okay, so,
Yes.
all right, so the words, so this words, Evan Shlema means complete stone, necessary for the accurate weights and measures of the Torah, and it expects us to use when doing business. However, the word Shlema can also be read Shlomo, based on the consonants. You saw it in the Hebrew. Okay, the name of the Vilna Gaon's father. And the word Evan can be read Aleph Bet Nun, which the Aleph referring to Eliyahu, which is the Gaon's name. And Bet Nun is Ben, son. Okay, so Aleph Ben Shlomo, Eliyahu Ben Shlomo. Okay, that's the reference. That's a reference to the Vilna Gaon encoded in that verse of Torah. Okay, would the Vilna Gaon have made the comparison if the date was 5,500? Let me start that again. Would the Vilna Gaon have made the comparison if the date 5,500 was off by 167 years? He would have been living in a period that corresponded to a different parsha altogether. And he held that the allusion to his name, followed by the account of Amalek at the end of the parsha, which was followed by a discussion about Eretz Yisrael and its produce, was an allusion to the sequence of events leading up to the final redemption. Okay. Furthermore, there's a tradition that every verse in the Torah corresponds to a year of history. You heard this, Greg?
Yes.
Greg, are you lying down?
I am, but I'm listening.
Okay. So the Hebrew year, folks, I want to make a bet with you that
No.
when we
Bet,
actually get to
bet,
the point of
bet
6,000,
lost.
we'll be
Bet
sleeping.
lost. Bet lost.
Bet lost. Okay. All right. So the Hebrew year 5698, when written out in Hebrew letters, spells the word tirtzach, which means you will murder. As it works out, the year 5698 corresponds to the Western year 1938. This is the year of the infamous Kristallnacht pogrom in Germany, and the beginning of what would eventually be Hitler's final solution, right? The Holocaust, what he called the Jewish problem. This correlation would be meaningless if the Jewish year 5698, which in Western years 1938, right? This wouldn't be the case if it didn't correspond, right? This word tirtzach would mean nothing if it wasn't overlapping with 1938, Kristallnacht. Okay, and this is supported with hints from the Zohar itself. And there are many similar examples to show that traditional Judaism abides by its current dates as being accurate since creation, and many reasons to assume that it is correct and understand. Okay, so here, Greg, we finally got to the 6,000.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the 6,000 years. This year, according to the Jewish calendar, is 5763. So this was written 19 years ago, right? Because right now, as we're reading this book, it's 5782 from creation. 5,782 years from creation. However, to millions of Jews, it means little more than 3,782 years, 4,763 or whatever, some other number, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And to many, all that really counts is that this is the year 2022, according to the Western dating system, okay? Then comes the news. History as we know it will only last 6,000 years. So simple math reveals that there are only 209 years left, okay? It's still enough to live a few lifetimes at our present rate of life expectancy, but it does serve to provide somewhat of a jolt, okay? Compared to estimates of 4 billion years, 237 years is just around the corner. 209 years is just around the corner, okay? So before we get to the serious part about history coming to an end, long before that, the question arises, why 6,000 years? Where do they get that number from? Okay. So to begin with, it's in the Talmud. It says, for 6,000 years, the world will exist. And for 1,000 years, it will be destroyed. Okay. That's from Sanhedrin 97a. Noteworthy is that it's noteworthy to say that no one argues with the above statement in the Talmud. Greg, this is the answer to the question that I had.
Yeah.
You remember? Greg is speaking.
Which was what? No, I'm not saying which was what.
I won the bet. But the question was, because we rely a lot on the 6,000 year date, right?
Yeah.
And I was wondering, is there any other opinions?
Yeah.
Okay, so here's the answer to the question.
Yeah.
Okay? It's noteworthy that no one argues with the above statement in the Talmud. It seems to be taken as fact. Rashi doesn't even bother to explain what the Talmud means by this statement. Okay, that means it's a clear indication that the 6,000 years is to be taken literally. Whenever you see a verse in the Torah that doesn't have a Rashi, that means that he didn't think it needed to be explained. It's just understood as is. Okay. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So the Ramchal, he concurs with this. Okay, he says the entire world must similarly be destroyed and then renewed. This is the meaning of what our rabbis have taught. For 6,000 years, the world will exist, and for 1,000 years, it will be destroyed. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
At the end of this 1,000 years, God will again renew his world. Okay, that's from Derech Hashem. Now listen to this. Here's the one objection to that.
Mm-hmm.
According to the Rambam, however,
Mm-hmm.
it is not so simple. Apparently, The Rambam held that the Talmud statement was not unanimous, but only expressive of one opinion, and therefore it is not to be taken literally. However, just about everyone else with an opinion on the matter disagrees with the Rambam throughout all of history, okay? Especially the Kabbalists, including the Ravad, who took the Rambam to task for contradicting the Talmud, okay? The reason for the difference of opinion may be the fact that, now this is from the Ari, this is the Arizal's explanation for the Rambam's view. You want to hear this? Okay, maybe the folks at home want to hear it. The Rambam is from the left peyah, from the left corner, in the Sfirot, okay, from the left side. We talked about that earlier. And therefore, he did not merit to learn the wisdom of the Zohar. The Ramban was from the right peyah. He was from the right column of the Sephirotic tree of life, okay? And he did merit to learn it, as is known in Shar HaGilgulim. Okay? In fact, anyone who learns Kabbalah causes a great tikkun and revelation of the light of his holy name. After Moshe received it from God, it was handed down from person to person, just to the select few of each generation. During the time of the Gaonim, 589 to 1038 CE, everything was hidden until the time of the Ramban, okay, which is from 1194 to 1270 CE, okay, in whose generation the Zohar was revealed. Okay. Zohar was published in 1380. Later, through the great light of the Arizal, all portions of the Nistar means a hidden Torah, were revealed. Okay. So, and as we shall see, the number 6,000 can only be understood within the context of Kabbalah, as the Vilna Gaon, who lived from 1720 to 1779, explained. Lived for 77 years. Know that each day of creation alludes to 1,000 years of our existence, and every little detail that occurred on these days will have its corresponding event happen at the proportionate time during its millennium. In fact, this idea that one millennium of history corresponds to one day of creation is taken so literally that it is said that 1 hour during the 6 days of creation corresponds to 83.33 years within the corresponding millennium. And this relationship of 1 day to 1,000 years is echoed in Tehillim. Tehillim is Psalms, okay? So 1,000 years in your eyes are but a day that has passed. Okay, that's from Psalm 90, verse 4. Kabbalah explains why. All the forces of the Gevurot, which are from the left side of the Sfirot, are rooted in the 6 Sfirot, Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferet, Netzach, Hod, Yesod, which are the 6 days of creation, and also the 6,000 years of history that the world will exist. And within them, the 6 Sfirot are the roots of all that will happen from the 6 days of creation until the final rectification. Okay? So what's a Sephira? There are many ways to discuss the Sfirot and their function in creation. However, in this respect, they are being understood as the spiritual DNA of the 6 days of creation and the 6 millennia that have followed since then. Okay. Greg, should we pause here?
You know what the problem is? It's not you this time.
I know.
No, it isn't you. I had a good amount of wine. That's the problem.
Yeah, he had some wine. He has a headache, folks. He has some
No, it's
wine.
not a headache. It's just so.
He's not in the mood.
No, I'm in the mood. It's just
Get it?
it's funny.
Yeah.
There's like
Okay. All right.
there's
All
a
right,
conflict between what I want and what my body is
I got you.
willing to give me.
So,
Something like
okay, so the best information is
that.
up ahead, but maybe if Greg, if you wanted to continue this, and next time we talk,
Yes. Leave
this
the
is
people in
where they-
suspense.
yeah, this is where they get into how we don't actually have to. It doesn't say that we have to wait for the year 6,000. We actually, there's about 9 years left at most
It's crazy.
from these calculations. That's what we're gonna-
Or 8 or something like that. Yeah.
Well, no, it's either 4 or 8. I'm sorry, 4 or 8. So
By the looks of things, I'm likely to say it's 4, or maybe tomorrow.
God forbid 4.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, tomorrow is tomorrow Pluto shows up, right? It's a repeat. It's a repeat of 1776, July 4th. Greg seems perplexed. Greg, you
Sorry,
taught
I'm
me.
just yeah. What did I teach you? What?
Pluto, 1776, July 4th.
Mhm.
That's
Yes,
tomorrow.
yes. It is.
Very-
That is tomorrow. Yes, that is tomorrow.
Very
But you
exciting.
could already feel the energy.
Yes, I want to feel
And
the
in the words of the plotting clouds in Family Guy, tomorrow we strike. I mean it this time.
Yeah.
Look at those clouds out. You know, he's like Putin's like the plotting clouds. You know, tomorrow. Look at those clouds up there plotting. Mean it this time. Yeah, I'm serious too. Yeah. So yeah. All right, sir. I gotta get rolling with the homies over here.
upload this immediately. The people.
Immediately. Yeah.
By the way, I changed the description of the letter. The Aleph bet
Yeah.
episode. Did you see it?
What do you mean by the description? Oh, in the YouTube?
In the YouTube, I changed it.
I didn't see.
Take a look at it. Let me know what you think. Okay.
Of which episode? Which one?
Well, the 3 letter episodes that we did, Aleph, Aleph.
Oh, okay.
So just take a look at it, see if you like the description.
Hebrew letters are the building blocks. Oh, I was wondering. Blocks of reality. That's the letter B. Cool.
Read it out loud. I wonder what it sounds like.
Hebrew letters are the building. Let's reframe. Hebrew letters are building blocks of reality, and then you just need to leave space between the. It's kind of hard to see the letter that you.
Yeah, it's a little bit smaller than the other font, but read the description.
Oh. I didn't even see that. These discussions aim to be the most in-depth study of the ancient Hebrew alphabet that has ever been publicly available. The goal is to reveal the letter's secret role as the most efficient information encoding system that will ever exist, and revealing their role as the most fundamental building blocks of all existence. This is a long-term effort. We aren't experts, but we are constantly obtaining new information. As we learn, so will you. Warning: prerequisite for this course having the ability to distinguish between serious content and shtick. Attempted comedy when it occasionally occurs. Very nice. Very nice. I like it.
Cool.
Good. All right, sir. I'm gonna go upload, and it's been real.
As Pee Wee Herman said, "Arrivederci, baby."
Yes, that's funny. Pee Wee Herman. My God, what a person to quote.
Actually, it wasn't him. It was that guy. It was that convict who picked him up. Remember in Pee Wee's Adventure? Arrivederci, baby. All right.
Yeah. All right, sir.
Yes, sir. Have a good one.
All right. I'll talk to you.
All right, bye.